Hey everybody, welcome to Leon's Chainsaw Parts and Repair. We're looking at Dion's Homelite's XL-12. This saw, I'll go through the note here. Finally emailed you back in May, finally got my saw de-rigged in a box. It's more sentimental than practical to fix it, but I raised 3 kids in the woods with it. The youngest is now 47. Anyhow, I'd like for you to fix it as best you can. I've never gotten it started after it sat around several years. When I did and tried to use it, it would just wimp out in a log or tree and couldn't revive its power. 2 different people tried to adjust it. It's high-low, but to no effect. Anyhow, please do whatever is necessary. Would like you to thoroughly inspect it for any problems and fixes needed. Blah blah. Okay. Rest of that does not pertain to fixing. So this was an interesting one because it's an XL-12. This has the flat reed system that mounts behind the throttle handle. So literally the back of the throttle handle has a single reed screwed onto it. So what it has is a different spacer than a Super XL. It has this spacer, and you'll note if you look on this side and then flip it, these are offset. Okay, so let me get my bearing lined up right here. This is how it goes in. So the crankcase impulse hole doesn't align with the perfectly with the carburetor impulse hole. It's offset. Okay, no big deal. No big deal until somebody rebuilds the carb and the block came off the throttle handle instead of the carb, so it stayed stuck in place, and they replaced the gasket behind at the block with what came in the carb kit, and that doesn't work, and I'll show you why. It works on this side up to a point. So, alright, I should be more careful with how I say this. It does work, but you've got to have it lined up right. So that'll match up to that impulse hole. It's not quite as thick as what would have been original. Okay, can let that slide. I want to make sure that I'm showing you guys this right, because if I'm not, it takes all the good effect out of the story. And I'm not. I had that reversed. I had that completely reversed. So my apologies, folks. This is the way it sits. So this side right here goes against the housing. See that? That's the impulse slot. There's the hole. It wasn't lined up. Now, when I got it apart, something had slipped. And I'm not sure if somebody had auged the holes out to try and line it up. Long story short, it was not sealing back here, and that's why it wouldn't start. I would be shocked if it ran like that. If it did, more power to it. I don't know how. So when you get a Tillotson carb kit and you get a couple of these, you can't use them in place of the Homelite gasket. Now those gaskets, somehow magically I was out of, so I made my own with the larger flange, larger version of this that has lots of material around it, so I was able to cut it and fit. But that's what was actually one of the biggest problems with this thing. The fuel hose setup was a conglomeration of either a Husky or a steel filter in there. I went with straight Tygon and an OEM style Homelite filter, the big felt kind. Cleaned out the engine. It was completely caked with grease and crap. I literally moved close to a pound of grease out of that. That's no joke. The starter was caked back there. There was no air gap and very little air movement, so I'm glad it didn't burn up. But anyway, that's what it took. The only other thing was the diaphragm and gasket were reversed on the fuel inlet side, so probably was allowing it to flood once it would finally prime. Let's go ahead and take a listen to it. I spent a little time tuning it, so this should start right up. 5-speed tuned as tight as it'll go. Don't think I need to. It's pretty damn close. Close enough. By the time you account for the variation in my fuel to whatever Dion's going to run. So anyway, I think we're in pretty damn good shape here. The points ignition system was in good shape. It already had a good spark plug in it. No indication of leaking seals anywhere. Replaced the one screw that was missing here and had been adapted with something else. And that's, the handle bracket's good and tight now. Manual oiler works like a champ. So I think we're good to go. I'll let it sit a couple days and do one more cold start just to be sure, but Dion, this will be heading your way soon.